She's published 7 full-length poetry collections, as well as a musical CD, Grinding My Ink. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah. Called the Haiku Queen of Portland by Willamette Week. Her haiku have appeared in journals worldwide, on Tokyo train station billboards, at a construction site for the Orange Line in Portland, and on cans of Itoen tea sold in vending machines in Japan. Her latest book, Just This, is her second collection of tanka. Maggie has just finished a 3-year appointment as poet laureate for Friends of Chamber Music, composing poems while listening to concerts. She currently serves, I want to get that gig, that sounds good. She currently serves as president of the Tanka Society of America. Living in Kyoto for 12 years, she now makes her home in Portland, where she hikes, gardens, swims, and creates flower arrangements for every room of the house, and there are a few books back there for sale. Please welcome Maggie Chula.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Mel, and your husband for making my coffee and for inviting me to read here. And Christopher, thank you so much. And congratulations on being Poet Laureate of Vancouver. And, you know, judging by the number of poets in this room, you're doing a great job. I have not seen this big of an audience for a long, long time. Well, it's a pretty wild group, so I was told not to read any poems about tulips or hearts. Or so I'm going to start out with kind of a wild poem, and then we're going to kind of quiet down toward the end. This poem has only been read once, and there are 2 people in this room that have already heard it. I thought nobody's heard this poem. So anyway, here it is again. You'll probably recognize it. This was also published in Voice Catcher. Some of you know the Women's Journal. It's called High Voltage. Listen up. It's not easy being a sex symbol, having to flash your assets, bare your midriff at middle age, knowing that it's staple stitched inside, sealed tight as Tupperware. Wearing your heart on your sleeve is nothing compared to those liposuctions and lip injections and Botox, the poison that makes you sexy and stupid, and 6 weeks later, you're waiting in line for another needle. Silicone has been deflated. Bust enhancement has gone herbal, like diet pills and vitamin swills that will kill to keep you forever young. My mojo love worker told me to screw the golden years. And when I heard that, I went out on an herb-inspired date with a stunt man who had a recent penis enhancement by Tortilla Enterprises. I dressed for the occasion wearing less silver foil than a baked potato. And just as we were cooking, this dude from the Inquirer busts into our hotel room and starts flashing his bulbs. We're just playing checkers, I tell him. You know, me kinging him and him queening me. Then in waltzes, amber waves, porn star, stunt girl, and the ex of my enhanced king. And all I can think of is my horoscope. Relationships in high voltage this week. So, there's more. I tuck myself into my tinfoil dress while Amber rants to the camera, and I thank my lucky stars that her nails are short so she can't claw my eyes out, and I say, sayonara, I'm out of here. You know, sometimes I just want an out-of-body experience. A horoscope that says, lounge around in bed, eat Pop-Tarts with 100% butter, have a mad hair day, and dance naked to ABBA. So, listen up, girlfriend. It's time to put away for the future start hoarding those mink stoles and diamond rings and get used to living alone, 'cause, girl, you know you're never gonna have a pork chop and sauerkraut kind of love. That's always fun to read. Kind of think about being that woman with her stoles. Okay, this is a pretty brand new poem, a week or so old, and I belong to a prompt group called the Word Sisters, 6 women in Portland, and we meet twice a month, and we give each other prompts to compose poems. So this is one from a prompt, and it's called Things My Aunt Mildred Told Me. Never believe what a mime tells you. He knows how to tell lies with his fingertips and in the slope of his pelvis. Likewise, don't ask strangers questions in an elevator. You may get answers that will let the horses back into the barn. Happiness may sit next to you on the park bench, but once you notice it, it will fly away on the wings of pigeons. Beware of heirlooms. The grape snipper and pickle forks will sever your connection with the present. Don't lick dew off a cabbage leaf. It gives you false hope. Its destiny is to be boiled in an iron pot and eaten by peasants. Keep your feet on the ground, even though you long to fly. Everyone knows that ugly ducklings belong in the water. Someday soon, you will meet a man in a chenille bathrobe who will offer you a cigar. Stop searching for the perfect lover. When you plan your future, be sure to include lace and licorice, and don't forget to replace the light bulbs in your head. Great if we could replace our light bulbs in our head with LEDs, or what do we call them? You know, keep going for another 20 years, the same capacity. So
burn out.
They never burn out, right? Well, they will eventually, but. So this is actually a poem I've never read, and it's about my mother's interview to go into the assisted living. You know, you have to be interviewed before they're allowed, at least in Massachusetts, before they allow you into the center. So my mother kind of came kicking and screaming, but when she finally got there, she said, "Oh, it looks pretty nice here. We'll see how the interview goes, whether I like it or not." So this is someone interviewing her and her answers, and these are almost verbatim. I mean, I was sitting there scribbling them down when I was listening to this interview because they were so much my mother.
Found poetry.
Yeah, found poetry. Thank you, Mother. The Arbor's Assisted Living Entrance Exam. Thank you for coming to the Arbor's. Now, I'm going to ask you a few questions. Please tell me your full name. Adelia Dorothy Cembalisti. But don't tell anyone my middle name. I hate the name Dorothy. Okay. Can you tell me the name of the current president? Obama. Very good. And the last president? I won't say what I thought of him, but his name was Bush. Right. Now, for some food questions. Do you have any food allergies? No, but I like a low-salt, low-fat diet. Can you do that for me? And I hate liver. If I see liver on my plate, I'll leave the table. Can you chew your food, or would you like it mashed up for you? I can chew fine. Do you have bread and butter plates? Yes, of course. Now, do you need help cutting your meat? No, I can cut fine. Just make sure the knives are sharp. What do you usually eat for breakfast, Adelia? Orange juice, toast, and coffee. But I'll eat eggs sometime if they're not fried. Do you have any tablecloths on the table for all your meals? Yes, we do. Now, for your room. We will strip your bed every week and make it up with new linens. Pillowcases, too? Yes, of course. We usually come by every night and tap on your door to make sure you're okay before you go to sleep. Does that work for you? Never mind. I don't want anyone bothering me at night. Sometimes I have curlers in my hair. Okay. Do you have any questions for us? Yeah. Did I pass the exam? You passed with flying colors, Adelia, and I know you'll be a fine addition to the arbors. Good, because I gotta get home now. Jones Judy is on at 4. It's fun remembering her that way. She passed last January, and actually the last book that I'll be reading from is dedicated to her, Adelia Dorothy. Adelia Chula. We don't want to mention her middle name. Okay. Now to get a little more serious, this book came out a couple of years ago. It started with a collaboration with a quilt artist, Kathy Erickson from Washougal, not far from here. And it started with this one quilt, a gorgeous quilt that I was to write a poem for. Well, the poem I wrote, and you know, when you look at something like this, we have as many different poems as there are people in the room. So mine happened to be about Japanese Americans in internment camps. Because of the flowers on the quilts and the fabrics, so these are, I lived for 12 years in Japan, so I know fabrics, Japanese fabrics, and there were several of them in here. And then there were things like a poppy that was very California, very US. And I felt very much like this quilt, that I was part Asian and I had to come back to my country and I didn't understand things here. So I was enthralled with this quilt and wrote it about the Japanese Americans in internment camps. And I'm sure all of you know this, about 120,000 Japanese Americans, many of them citizens, were rounded up, put in you know, the expo center right up the road here, in stockyards all over the West Coast, and then moved eventually to internment camps. There were 10 internment camps. I wrote a poem for, we did a quilt and a poem for each of the 10 camps. And I wrote a poem, a persona poem, in the voice of somebody in the camps. So there are 10 different voices here, so you have a sense of what it was like for all these different kinds of people. So that's enough. The one I brought tonight is one I don't read very often, but I do happen to have a color image of the quilt. They're all beautiful. Please have a look at the book when you have a minute. Now, when you write a poem to a scroll in Japan, you don't just describe it. You take an image image of something in the scroll or the painting, and then go from there in a different direction. So what I did, and you'll see it in the poem, is I made this moon with the geese into plates. Plates decorated with geese. And it was so far from her quilt that I asked her actually permission. Do you mind if I put plates into this? Because it's not at all like your quilt. Most Japanese went very quietly and obediently. They were taught Japanese custom is to obey people who are above you. So they went very obediently. This woman is expressing some anger, and this is the only anger poem in the whole book. Most of them are accepting things as they are. I used this dark cloud to trigger the anger. feeling as I was writing this. So I found something dark in the quilt. So you can imagine, what would you take in 2 suitcases if you had to leave very suddenly? And this is about what she takes. This is a poem written in diary form. The poems are all written in different forms as well. Okay.
Can I hold that for you?
Oh, maybe we can just put it up here. Thank you. Here we go. Dear Diary, September 22nd, 1942, Rohrer, Arkansas. Hot, humid, no clouds. Sitting by the window hoping for a breeze. Was in a bad mood all day. No word from Masayuki. I'm worried sick. It's been over a month since I got a letter from him in that Justice Department camp where the FBI men took him. Lucy Stewart wrote and said she missed us and was sorry they couldn't store our furniture and stuff. Why didn't I take my beautiful plates with me instead of these useless wool blankets? September 25th, 1942. Woke up itching from chigger bites. Same bad dream, that fat man with black hair on his arm shouting, "What about them dishes? I'll give you $3 for the lot." Horrible, like it was happening all over again. His hands like bear claws grabbing my wedding plates. My children crying from the car, and Lucy yelling, "Hurry up, we gotta go, no room for the plates." And that sweaty man kept saying, $3, come on, $3. Okay. $2.50. My head hurts. I can't write anymore. September 26, 1942. Why can't I stop thinking about those wedding plates? I had to burn Masako's letter because it was in Japanese, but I remember the best part. My dear sister, I made these plates round so you'll feel American, but I painted on Japanese geese so you'll migrate back to your homeland. Did we make the wrong choice leaving Japan and coming here? September 28, 1942. Every meal is liver or wieners or slop suey on heavy white plates. Sometimes I want to take those plates and smash them. Slop suey all over the walls. Just like when we were leaving and I took my wedding plate out of that hairy man's hands and threw it on the sidewalk. Smash! And then I couldn't stop. Smash, smash! Until there were 12 full moons and flying geese broken into pieces on the sidewalk. And then, oh, that was the best part, seeing that angry man's face when I handed him the empty box and got into the car. Okay, now something a little more gentler. Tanka. How many people know what tanka poetry is? Okay, well, it's not Tonka toys. That's Tonka. Those little yellow dumb trucks I always wanted to play with, but my brothers wouldn't let me. So it's not that. It's not the Tanka, the paintings, the scrolls that hang, the Tibetan scrolls. That's Thangka. Those are religious scrolls. It's Tanka, and it means short song in Japanese. And it is a short song, but it has a very long history. It's over 1,200 years old. It preceded haiku. It was written in the courts. And it was written primarily by women. In the Heian era, it's like the Renaissance era here, but the Heian era was 11th century, 10th century, quite a long time ago. Now, I guess the best way to describe the difference between, most of you know what haiku is, or you've read several. Haiku is like a momentary experience in nature, and it really is very, very quick, and there's one impulse, and has a nature word in it, some seasonal word in it. A tanka is almost a whole narrative. It's a short song, but it's a narrative, and it tells a story about our personal lives. So it's much more humanistic and emotional, but through use of images, not she felt sad, but we show things in tanka. I love this form. I've been writing it for probably about 30 years. And I encourage you to try writing tanka. There's Tanka Society of America site on the website. Go there and look for examples. So it is 5 lines. Haiku's 3. So in Japanese it's 5-7, 5 syllables, 7-7. But in English we don't worry about that at all. We don't worry about, and haiku in English, we don't worry about counting syllables. It's mostly the shift that we're looking for, and you see a kind of a shift in each one of these. This was published just this spring by Mountains and Rivers Press. They did a beautiful job, and I'm going to be reading Saturday night in Eugene from this collection. It's divided into 5 sections, and I will name the section before I read the poems. Lingering Fragrance. Late summer in the garden just before dusk, touching leaves and flowers as I never touched you. By the way, these are short and they go quickly. If you'd like it read again, raise your hand. Oh, not everyone though. Late summer in the garden just before dusk, touching leaves and flowers as I never touched you. See the shift from nature to personal. My younger sister now sends me her cast-offs from the cardboard box, the cloying scent of Estee Lauder. Again distracted while making breakfast, my husband's angry face as he spreads marmalade on burnt toast. First date at the drive-in. A bag of popcorn between them, all those unpopped kernels. Remember those days? Unpopped. We were all unpopped. Not all of us, but some of us. Okay, this is a section, Who Can Say What Loneliness Is? You sign your letters affectionately. I write, loving you. Picking a scab on my cleavage, I watch it bleed. Picking a scab on my cleavage, I watch it bleed. This is a poem that several of us can relate to at our age with our parents ailing and passing. My parents and in-laws moving toward senility. Suddenly, there's no one I need to impress. Suddenly, there's no one I need to impress. The stranger I made love to in last night's dream, I meet in the farmer's market, his toddler in hand. Do you ever dream about people and then see them on the street? Not people you know. Moving mother to a nursing home, I take home the dregs of her perfumes. None of them smell like her. None of them smell like her. There's something very strange. I took her vitamins as well, and I just finished them, a year later. But I did that for her, and also because I'm that way too. You don't waste anything. Vitamins are expensive. She would have been upset if I had thrown them away, so. This section is called Hush of Crickets. Hush of crickets from familiar trees. We leave our home of 17 years without fanfare. You see how many stories you can make from these? Very short forms, but with great emotional impact and imagination. Returning after a long absence, my last bouquet of flowers still on your table, drooping and dead. I do have flowers all over the house, and when I go away, I always try to make a nice bouquet, but when I come back, they're always drooping and dead. Every Christmas, a lump of coal in his stocking. My brother, now a salesman, with pearly white teeth. Did you have that custom? Some people have never heard of it. If you've been naughty, you have a lump of coal in your stocking. That's Massachusetts, East Coast. It's brutal down out there. Yeah, that lump of coal. He got it every year too, the poor guy. Yeah, that could ruin you. This is trying to remember section. Corn silk, my baby hair, mother saved, sealed up tight in tiny envelopes. Corn silk, my baby hair, mother saved, sealed up tight in tiny envelopes. You know, you find things when people are, you know, when you're going through your parents' house, and these tiny little cellophane envelopes with the baby hair in them. Of course, I still have them. How I hated Nana's homemade borscht. And even now, those stubborn red stains on her cutting board.
That's good.
My sister and I drink Bloody Marys and make Thanksgiving pies. 24 stories bubble up through the crust. Yeah, we drank too many Bloody Marys. We're making 4 pies, and we couldn't remember if we put the sugar in or the salt in, or we sure had a good time though. So this actually is a reference to 420 blackbirds, right? So this is what Tonka does too. It makes references to poems that everybody knows. I've done some with Emily Dickinson in here as well. 30 years later, I find them pressed in my journal. What was that flower? And who is that man? I'm still, okay, a couple more. After my coworker shows me his collection of mounted butterflies, my sexual fantasies fly out the window. Okay, a couple more short ones here. All I found when I Googled my father was his obituary. A cool breeze releases the sigh of the wind chime. Okay, and the last 2. The essence of each of these rocks now painted on canvas. One by one, we return them to the river. Walking the path through the dark garden, moonlight shines on the flower with no scent. Moonlight shines on the flower with no scent. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. As is tradition, we're going to take about a 15-minute break. You can buy some books, get some coffee, and if for some reason you're not able to join us for the second half, please join us on December 12th when our featured reader will be Christy Krug, who is the teacher of the popular Wildfire writing class at Clark College, and also part of the Voice Catcher Collective, which many of you are familiar. So thanks again to Maggie Chula. That was a great reading. See you in 15, and remember the petition too is over here.